Good evening and welcome to this special Vote 2014 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight's show is a debate sponsored by Clean Elections. We'll hear from candidates competing in the Republican primary for governor. As with all of Arizona Horizon's debates, this is not a formal exercise. It's an open exchange of ideas, an opportunity for give and take between candidates for the state's most important office. As such, interjections, even interruptions, are allowed, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we will do our best to make sure that that happens. 6 Republican candidates are competing to be Arizona's chief executive. They are Secretary of State Ken Bennett, State Treasurer Doug Ducey, former business executive Christine Jones, former California Congressman Frank Riggs, former Mesa Mayor Scott Smith, and former Maricopa County Attorney Andrew Thomas. Each candidate will have 1 minute for opening and closing statements. Earlier, we drew numbers to see who goes first, and that honor goes to Scott Smith.
Thank you, Ted. And thank you for this great opportunity to be before you today. Tonight you're going to have the unique opportunity to hear from 6 individuals who want to be the CEO of Arizona, the one who will lead this state literally for the next generation by the decisions that he or she makes in the next 1 to 3 years. After 30 years of experience in business and education and owning a business and as a CPA and then selling that business and entering into politics with my first elected office as mayor of Mesa, I have handled a lot of crises. As a matter of fact, in government, I'm the only one here who has actually led in a moment of crisis, taking over as mayor of Mesa as we began the deepest recession ever. So as we go through this evening, you have a unique opportunity to see who can actually not only present a plan, but who can live up to that plan, to the promises that they make. I can tell you that through my years of experience as both from an educational background and through business and in government, I have not only said what I can do, I've done it. Former Mayor Scott Smith, I'm proud to be here.
Thank you very much. For the next opening statement, we turn to Doug Ducey.
Thank you, Ted. It's great to be here tonight. I'm happy to let you know tonight that I have been endorsed by Arizona Right to Life, by Senator Jon Kyl, by current Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin, and by State Senator Al Melvin. Al Melvin was in this race with all of us, and he recently stepped out and he endorsed our campaign because he said Doug Ducey was the most electable conservative in the race. And I'm running on my real world record. I've been married 24 years to my college sweetheart, Angela. We have 3 young sons. I built a company, Cold Stone Creamery. We built Cold Stone to 1,440 stores operating in all 50 states. We sold Cold Stone in 2007, and I became your state treasurer. I've been managing $12.5 billion of state assets for the last nearly 4 years. I've stopped a $1 billion permanent sales tax increase in Prop 204, and most importantly, I want to kickstart our economy, secure our border, and put a real fix on our education system. My name's Doug Ducey, and I look forward to visiting with you tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Now let's turn to Frank Riggs.
Good afternoon, Ted, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm Frank Riggs, a homeowner and resident of Scottsdale with my wife of 34 years, Kathy, native daughter born in Tucson. I'm a proud Army veteran. I'm the only military veteran running for governor. I'm also a former police officer and deputy sheriff. I've pinned on the badge. I've put myself in harm's way to protect the public safety. I'm a successful small businessman, former school board president, founding CEO of the largest nonprofit in Arizona and in this country, dedicated to helping charter schools with their facility financing and development needs. And I'm a former 3-term United States Congressman who served with distinction in that institution, helped to reform it, helped to pass the balanced budget, helped to reform welfare by imposing time limits and work requirements on able-bodied welfare recipients, compiled a consistently conservative voting record that earned me the highest ratings and the endorsements of National Right to Life and the NRA. And I look forward to talking to you tonight about my vision for Arizona and how we're going to end the Obamanization of Arizona.
All right, thank you very much. Up next with his opening statement is Andrew Thomas.
Thank you and good evening. There is in this election season one issue that dwarfs all the others. If we do not secure our border and stop illegal immigration, all of our talk about other issues, health care, jobs, the economy, education, all of these issues, all of those matters become meaningless because we will go broke, we are losing our sovereignty, and we are losing our way of life. There is a difference in this election. When I enforced the law as Maricopa County Attorney, illegal immigrants fled this state. We had unprecedented success at the state and local level in stopping illegal immigration. And we can have that again if we are willing to elect somebody who has the toughness to take on the entire political, legal, and media establishment for years to accomplish this. That is what is required. That is what I am prepared to do. I am running for governor of this state so that we can secure our border once and for all, defend our way of life, and have a bright future for this state and for this nation. And I look forward to the debate tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Our next opening statement, Christine Jones.
Thanks so much, Ted. Hi, I'm Christine Jones. I'm a Republican candidate for governor, but I wasn't always a candidate for governor. Not so long ago, I was just a regular, ordinary citizen. But now, having traveled about 40,000 miles all over the state of Arizona to all 15 counties, having met so many incredible, caring, thoughtful, amazing people in this state, I've confirmed kind of what I suspected all along, which is that the people of Arizona are ready for this non-establishment, outside, conservative message. And we've talked about excellence in education and the enforcement of immigration law and economic development, but clearly the single issue that is defining this race at the moment is border security. And as we've traveled around, it has been the #1 issue for many months. And I look forward to talking about that more tonight, Ted. Mostly I look forward to really focusing on issues for what they are. Statewide challenges that require cooperation and leadership to solve. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And our final opening statement goes to Ken Bennett.
Thank you, Ted. Good evening, I'm Ken Bennett. I've been in Arizona all my life. I was born in Tucson and raised in Prescott. I met my wife Jean at ASU. We've been married 32 years. We have 3 grown children and 2 little grandchildren. I've spent most of my adult life in the private sector. I ran a family business up in the Prescott area for almost 23 years. And for the past 6 years, I've been on the board of directors for the Cancer Treatment Centers of America Hospital out in Goodyear. During that same 30 years, though, I also have offered myself for public service. I started on the Prescott City Council many years ago, later on the State Board of Education, and then 8 years in the legislature and 4 years as president of the State Senate. We're going to be talking tonight about our economy, about education, and has been mentioned by several about our safety. And I'm proud to have been endorsed in our campaign by 4 state law enforcement associations: the correctional officers that work in our prisons, the Fraternal Order of Police, the Arizona Conference of Police and Sheriffs, and the Arizona Highway Patrolmen's Association. Look forward to visiting with you tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Candidates, let's get it started. This is a Republican primary for governor here. Tea Party, a major factor in Republican politics. Scott, do you support the Tea Party? Is the Tea Party good for Arizona?
Well, I think anytime you have vigorous debate, it's good for Arizona, it's good for the nation. And I've spent a lot of time talking to friends who are in the Tea Party. From a principle standpoint, I would say that everyone on this panel believes with many of the principles or the principles that the Tea Party espouses. And I think passion is good in politics. And so, you know, I think the Tea Party, I think on either side, you have to have people who are willing to stand up for what they believe. That doesn't mean you have to always agree with them on everything, on every process, on everything. But I think anytime you have passionate debate is good for Arizona, good for America.
Ted, when I served in the United States Congress, we had a great saying. It was, don't listen to what they say, look at how they actually vote. And it was my voting record that earned me the highest honors from Citizens Against Government Waste, Watchdogs of the Treasury. And like I said, when I left Congress to keep my term limits commitment in 1998, the federal budget was balanced and generated surpluses for 4 consecutive years thereafter. So I was Tea Party before it was cool. And I'm with the Tea Party, not the cocktail party, and I've got a record that shows it.
Doug, Tea Party good for Arizona, good for Republican politics, good for everyone.
Well, I came into public service in 2010, the year of the Tea Party, and it meant taxed enough already, and I thought that was a good idea. The Tea Party in 2010 was talking about tightening the belt of the state and having our budget under control. It was talking about reducing taxes and taking care of the people that are out there in the working world. I'm proud to have the support of Mark Meckler, who's actually the founder of Tea Party Patriots, and Senator Al Melvin was the self-anointed Tea Party candidate in this race. I think the Tea Party kept the Republican Party together, and I think if the Republican Party will lead as true fiscal conservatives and make sure they're making ideas that make government smaller and more limited, we'll be able to have more successful campaigns in the future.
Christine, some though say that the Tea Party is a reason that there is a civil war going on in the Republican Party. Again, we're addressing Republican voters here. Is the Tea Party good for politics?
Well, anytime you have a conversation that talks about conservatism, whether it's fiscally or otherwise, it's a good, healthy conversation. I do think it's dangerous for us to drive wedges between conservatives and pave the way for liberals. So in as much as we have 4 buckets in the Republican Party, we have the moderates, the conservatives, the Tea Party, and the libertarians. If you think of it that way, I think we ought to focus on the things that we have in common. You could probably say there are 80 or 90% of the things about which we agree. We ought to live over those 80 or 90% of the things and not die over the 10%, because it is an absolute certainty that the Democrats would love to take control of this state. So the Tea Party and the traditional Republicans, and however else you self-define, ought to come together on August 27th and make sure we elect a Republican.
Good for Arizona, Andrew?
But yeah, I think you deserve a direct answer to a direct question. I think the Tea Party has been a good movement, and it's unfortunate that we're not getting direct answers to that question. I think it's a fair one, and I will tell you I'm proud of the fact that many of the people, the grassroots conservatives who have risen up to help my campaign and are helping me throughout the state, are members of the Tea Party. And let's be clear, the liberal media attack the Tea Party for the same reason they attack any real conservative. They don't like the principles that they stand for, and they see that they're effective. And we need to stand up for conservatives who are under attack, including the Tea Party, including other groups who have tried to do something important in behalf of conservative principles, and that is not divide and conquer. We need a real conservative as governor, and we should accept nothing less.
Ken, is the Tea Party dividing the Republican Party?
No, I think the Tea Party is a productive part of the party because it helps remind us that we need to think back to the principles that they're trying to remind us of, which is living within our means. You know, I think a lot of their focus has been at the national level, and we've all watched the national debt balloon to over $17 trillion. But we also have over $8 billion of debt as a state of Arizona, even though our Constitution says we should only be limited to $350,000. So we need to live within our means. The last time the state budget was balanced without accounting tricks and gimmicks or temporary tax increases was in 2006 and 7. Jim Wires was the Speaker of the House and I was the President of the Senate, and we made sure that we lived within our means and had $1.1 billion in the rainy day fund. And that's what I think the Tea Party is wanting us to remind all levels of government, live within your means and save for rainy day.
Okay, with that in mind, you mentioned the economy. Arizona, Scott, lags the U.S. in job recovery. Why is that? How do you change that?
Well, it not only lags in job recovery, we've only recovered half of the jobs that we lost during the recession. For heaven's sakes, California has recovered all of the jobs they lost, and that's the, you know, might be called the worst business tax and regulatory environment in the country. But the other problem is we're not only recovering jobs at a slower rate, but the quality of jobs we are recovering are basically minimum wage jobs. They're not the high quality jobs. So we lost high quality jobs, we're not recovering those. You change that by, first of all, changing the conversation, becoming more focused as a state as to what we're going to what we want to work on. As mayor, we did this in Mesa. We decided exactly the industries and the areas that we were good at. We had a HEAT initiative, healthcare, education, aerospace, tourism, technology. And then we worked to not only partner with the private sector, government and business, but allowing and inviting investment in. And that's how you create high quality jobs for long term. And the other thing is we cannot avoid the impact that the education and what people perceive our education system as being as a negative drag on our economic growth.
How do you change, Doug? How do you change this economic environment? The rest of the country seems to be moving right along. Why aren't we keeping pace?
It's time to kickstart Arizona's economy. I built a brand that is known and loved around the country and now the world. Let's look at other states that do things better than Arizona. Let's improve and simplify our tax code. I'll sign a moratorium on new regulation on day one in office, and I'll have Texas-style tort reform that will lower liability on the small businessman and the taxpayer. In addition, I'll be the best salesperson for the state of Arizona. We don't have to talk companies into leaving California. They're leaving by the hundreds. Ted, we're already Chicago's favorite suburb. We need to take the natural attributes of our state and present them out to the other 49 states and have our economy boom again.
What do you think, Frank? I mean, as far as getting jobs back, you're from California, you know what's going on over there. How do you make it happen over here?
Listen, by the way, I was a United States congressman, so I represented 600,000 constituents, but all Americans by extension, and I'm proud of my record in Congress. But I'm also equally proud now to be an Arizonan. What's really been lagging is business investment. And what I would like to do, what I will propose and work with the state legislature to adopt is an incentive that would allow all businesses, regardless of size, big or small, 95% of Arizona businesses are small or very small businesses, but to fully write off all investment expenses in the year that those investments are made or be able to carry them forward until they're fully offset against the state income tax liability as opposed to some long-term amortization or depreciation schedule.
How do you pay for something like that? How do you keep education funded
It
with something like
absolutely pays
that?
for itself. It'll stimulate investment and job creation. You know, we have to incentivize the private sector, but we have to do that without handing out favors or tax credits. You know, I've been the skunk at the garden party in these forums. At the Technology Council, I said I don't approve of the angel tax credit, the R&D tax credit, creating a state-run venture capital fund to compete with the private sector. Let me just finish, Ted. And last week at the tourism conference, the same thing with respect to the motion picture industry tax credit, because one business's tax credit is another industry's corporate welfare. We need fundamental reform of the tax code, simplify it, and get rid of all those special interest loopholes, which just constitute corporate
But
welfare.
Frank, wait a second. But I mean, I agree with it, because investment tax credit, which was brought in by John Kennedy, created a huge investment. Section 179 in our federal tax code accomplishes what you've had, but it still talks about the investment of capital. The service industry doesn't get that. So even what you're saying does choose one type of business. And I'm not opposed to that, because I think we ought to spur capital investment.
A service,
we ought to have things.
a service-related, excuse me, Scott, for interrupting you, but a service-related business would still be able to fully expense their investment expenses.
But their capital expenditures are very minor. And so I think we have to look at things, we have to look at a combination of things in order to spur the time investment. Angel credit, those things are broad-based, because they talk to a specific activity, and those are the kind of activities we need to
Okay, Andrew,
encourage.
what do you think about this?
Well, a variety of things are needed. We need to have a tax and regulatory policy that makes sense and that compares well to other states that we're competing against for jobs and economic growth. We need to make sure that we have border policies, frankly, that are focused on securing the border once and for all. I mean, that is the issue. I keep talking about it because it dwarfs all other issues. We have to have safety in this state. This has to be a place where people can retire, invest, live, and not have to worry about the state being a superhighway of immigration and of illegal immigration, of drug and human trafficking to the nation. This is something that is a drag on us economically, and it also, the $2.7 billion a year in costs for Arizona taxpayers, that is something we're having to pay. We could reduce taxes, and we ultimately will if we secure the border and I get in there and we accomplish that.
Christine, public-private partnerships, these sorts of things, the Arizona Commerce Authority, is that a good idea? Some say you're playing favorites, some say you shouldn't be playing favorites. What do you think?
Well, I think anytime you want to make money, you have to spend money. And this is one of the reasons it's important once in a while to have a business person come and run the state. So I'm not even convinced you have to have that every single time. But once in a while, you have to say, we're going to look at both sides of the income statement. There is a revenue side as well as an expense side. And to say, what would it take for us to raise revenue without raising taxes? And this is, if you see my economic development plan, very, very well defined in there. But part of the issue is, we should be incentivizing so that we level the playing field. First of all, you got to streamline the tax code and get the government out of the way of the little businesses so they can create jobs. But to the companies that are small that are going to become big, to say we were to incentivize, let's incentivize on something that levels the playing field, like net new revenue, so that if you're in the state, you get the incentive. If you're out of the state, you get the incentive. We don't pick winners, we don't pick losers. We just say we're going to have to spend some money to make some money. If you had two deals, you could spend 0 today and get 0 in 10 years, or you could spend 10 today and get to 100 in 10 years. Which deal would you take? You'd take the second deal all day long.
Ken, does that math add up to you? And again, how do you? You've been around. We've had tax cuts after tax cut after tax cut. Why are we lagging in job recovery?
Well, I think economic development comes down to 4 things. One is money, the cost of doing business in Arizona. In one way or another, we've all referred to the tax policies in our state that make us attractive or not so attractive compared to other states. 2 is talent. Is our education system, both the K-12 and the higher education levels, producing the kinds of men and women that can make companies already here and wanting to stay here, or ones looking to come in successful? The 3rd is time, the regulations and things. You know, Doug says we'll sign a thing on the first day to have a moratorium on any new regulations. Well, Governor Brewer did that 5 years ago and it's still in place. So we already have...
It expires before the next election, Kevin. So
Well,
I'll put it back in place.
Well, we have a moratorium on any new regulations, and that should be continued. But that would not be any different than what we have already. And then the 4th is the image of our state. And that's where you get into issues, are we safe? And all the other issues that are important for a company either wanting to feel like they can stay here or wanting to come in.
Ted, could I?
Please.
Yeah, just add something real quick. Again, we can't lose sight of the obvious. The Center for Immigration Studies came out a couple weeks ago with an analysis that showed that all new jobs created since 2000, that's 3 presidential administrations, all of them have been taken by immigrants, legal and illegal. So when we talk about a jobless recovery, when we talk about chronically high unemployment rates, particularly along the border, I mean, start with the obvious. These jobs are being taken by people who are coming into our country legally or illegally, and that is the elephant in the room.
Are these jobs? Hold on a second, please. Are these jobs being taken?
Absolutely.
Are they? Because
well,
I'm hearing from
ones.
contractors, I'm hearing from people in the construction, they can't find people to take these positions.
If you pay them properly, they will work. It's basic economics. I mean, the idea that American citizens will not take these jobs. I have met these citizens on the campaign trail. I've been in their homes. These are people who, these may not have the highest level education or income, but these are real citizens who are having trouble getting jobs, and a lot of these jobs have been taken. That is just a statistical fact.
Frank? But you said all jobs, and that is the kind of absurd assertion that distorts the debate. You got to be honest with voters. You cannot speak down to them. You have to speak up. You can't demean their intelligence. That is absolutely an absurd assertion. The fact of the matter is that we're experiencing an influx of illegal immigration as a direct result of the amnesty policies, lax border security, and lenient deportation procedures of the Obama administration. That's the reason. The governor has a duty, a responsibility to help secure the border, but that has to be a combined federal, state, and local response.
If I could
and
respond.
To constantly blame illegal immigrants for every challenge that we have as a state is absolutely irresponsible.
Excuse me, I have to respond because this is insulting. I have cited a reputable source that came out with a study a few weeks ago, the Center for Immigration Studies, which stated this. It was widely published, widely talked about. Now, you can disagree with their analysis, but they're reputable. They've been relied upon by a lot of national conservative organizations, and I don't think it's helpful to disparage the people who are, frankly, brave enough to speak out and provide analyses of the impact of illegal immigration against us.
Get out of immigration. I got to ask ourselves, have we not created the types of jobs? I mean, that begs the question, what kind of jobs have we created if every single one has been taken by an illegal immigrant? What begs the question? We are in worse trouble from an economic standpoint than we are from an immigration standpoint because we're not creating any high quality jobs. Because I don't think the people who crossed the border and walked across the desert are walking into that high-paying engineering job. And they're not walking into that high-paying, highly skilled job that we so covet in this state, which we're not creating. Or in this country, which obviously we're not creating. I think that, I don't know that you can make
excuse me, Scott, legal immigrants are taking those jobs. Do you understand? Legal immigrants are taking those jobs from India and elsewhere. I said legal and illegal, in case you weren't listening. That's what I said. That's what the study says. That's where those jobs are going. The illegal.
Legal and illegal.
But that's what I said 2 minutes ago,
But it still
Frank.
comes back to the basic question. What are we doing to drive our economy that creates these kind of things that our kids, when they're graduating from college, they can walk into a job, they can walk into a future. That's where we need to be focused.
Illegal immigration, that issue, and Arizona's economy. I mean, how intertwined, and if so, it's a federal responsibility. What can you do as governor?
It's a big issue, and I think a governor has to do everything that they can do. It's the federal government's first job to protect its citizens. And I think by any measure, Barack Obama has failed Arizona and America. I come at this from the perspective of Brian Terry's mother. I was asked to speak at the Brian Terry dinner in Tucson earlier this year. The guest speaker, Brian Terry was a border agent, murdered at the border. The guest honoree that night was Sue Krentz. Her husband, Bob, was murdered at his southern ranch. And Sue asked the audience, what has the federal government done in response to these tragedies? And what they've done, Ted, is they've put up signs in the desert warning us that dangerous people are among us, and if you see one, call 911. That's why I've said I'm for all of the above, and whatever it takes as governor. In Arizona, we have a different issue than other states because we are on the southern border, and these folks are coming through an open and unprotected desert. In the Tucson sector, there are drug cartels and human trafficking, and our governor can reprioritize public safety and law enforcement assets to address it.
She can. She hasn't.
Why not? I think our governor has been outspoken on this. This is heated back up again, and there's been nothing done on the Tucson sector by our federal government.
Some would say she hasn't.
State government?
Yeah, some would say she hasn't because But you can't. And you have mentioned that you want guard troops on the border, you want more law enforcement, you want to finish the fence, electronic monitoring, send the bill to President Obama. Some would say what you're asking for, we can't afford, and legally we can't do. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think first of all, let's rationalize this conversation. There are two distinct issues here. One is immigration policy, which is distinctly federal policy. We all sitting at this table wish we could wave our magic wand and fix it, because frankly, it's not all that hard. It's just that the Congress won't do it. The second issue is border security. As governor, you can and we should fix that. I've said I want to send troops to the border, finish the fence in strategic areas. We don't need the Great Wall of Mexico here, friends. We need to finish it in places that are known, highly trafficked areas, and then use technology to monitor who's coming and going. This is decidedly within the rights of the governor, and as governor, that's what I'll do. You saw Rick Perry this morning call for 1,000 troops at the border. He's doing exactly the same thing that I'll do as the governor. He has a slightly larger territory to guard, so he's asked the federal government to supplement it with an additional 3,000 troops. This is good, solid policy. And Scott, I know you're going to say that it's 2,000 miles of border, but we have 262 miles in Arizona that are at issue, where almost 50% of the immigration is coming across. But importantly, please let me finish this. We're not talking about shutting down the border, okay? We're talking about understanding who's coming and going. We want good, solid commercial traffic to come across. Mexico is our single largest trading partner. That's good economic stimulus. We want that to increase, in fact. But let's know who's coming and going. Let's make safe, secure, stable environment for the citizens of Arizona.
Who pays for this, Ken? How do we pay for it? Who pays for it? And what do they do once they get down there at the border?
Well, you're not going to pay for it with a magic wand, and you're not going to pay for it by sending a bill to Congress, because they've already not paid several bills.
It's not going to Congress, it's going to the Obama administration.
We're going to do, if I get to be the governor, one of the most important things the governor has to do is work with the legislature. When I was president of the Senate, we passed a bill in 2006. Unfortunately, Janet Napolitano vetoed it. But that bill would have approved $50 million for high-tech border detection devices, $55 million to assist the local law enforcement, especially along the border counties, 100 new DPS officers just for border interdiction, authority to put the National Guard down there in the times that it can be deployed that way, employer sanctions, and all kinds of other things. Unfortunately, it was vetoed. If we had done those kinds of things consistently for the last 8 or 9 years, I think the situation at the border would be much different today. And that's the kind of bill that I will ask for and sign if I'm governor.
Do you think the situation at the border would be much different if that thing had been signed?
Well, I'm just wondering how we would have kept paying for it. Here's the reality. I mean, this is a huge, huge problem. It's a huge issue. And I would love to say, as governor, as any governor can, I'm going to wave the magic wand and say, here's what we're going to do. But then reality sets in. And the fact is that nobody here is talking reality. The reality is that, yes, the federal government, not only by policy, but by practice, is the one that is meant to secure the border. There are things we could do as a state internally, but with what? You know, I was talking to a sheriff in a rural county who was lamenting the fact that the DPS budget has been cut so much that now DPS is not responding to certain traffic accidents on state highways, hoping the sheriff will show up. You know, we talk about all this money we're going to spend, $200 million, $100 million a year. Ken, with all due respect, those things were passed during a time in history of the greatest expansion of our economy where we had excesses.
No, and we had a balanced budget and $1 billion in the rainy day fund.
Because we were swimming in revenue during a great good times. Yeah. What are we going to do? And we have to talk about what reality is. And the fact is, it is a 2,000-mile problem. All of these children that are coming out of a horrible situation are crossing in Texas. They're not crossing Arizona. There are things that Arizona can do, but Doug hasn't offered anything. Everything that we might possibly, perhaps, maybe could do, that's not a solution. That's not an action.
Scott, let Doug respond.
Well, I have offered things that we can do. And when I say more fencing, new technology, and that we reprioritized the $300 million in the DPS budget when we partner with county sheriffs and when we aim at criminals and drug cartels and human trafficking, that is doing something, Scott. And the thing is, many of us, or some of us here, are very good at telling people what can't be done. I think a governor has to show what needs to be done and has to be the spokesperson for it. We will need, over the course of time, our federal government's participation to check this off the box. But the governor, just like our current governor, should wave this flag. This is an issue. Texas has a river. New Mexico has a mountain range. California has a fence. Our border is wide open and unprotected, and the governor needs to continue to
But
speak
you
out
still
on
haven't
this.
answered the question. The question is,
I said all of the
agree with you,
above
but
and whatever it
What you're
takes.
saying is that this governor has done nothing.
No,
then,
I've
because
not. Those are your words.
No, Governor Jan Brewer, I can tell you, if there was something to be done, she would do it. I'm not saying what can't be done. I'm saying what is realistic to promise the voters of Arizona and the expectations that we can give to the voters of Arizona, and you're giving them an illusory
This
promise. that
issue
can't be
has
taken.
gone from being a state issue to now it is a national issue with
No, it
people
was a
see
national issue to
what is
begin with.
happening with the transportation from thousands of illegal
So
immigrants from Texas
which budget
to
are you going to
Arizona.
cut? Which budget are you going to cut to transfer that? DPS officers haven't received a raise.
I've spoken
We've
out
cut
on-
the number of
okay.
DPS officers.
Am I gonna get
What
the
are you
answer,
cut
or are
out
you
of
gonna
DPS
filibuster?
to transfer that
Scott, let him
priority?
answer.
I said I'm going to reprioritize the $300 million that are being spent. We're also working on replenishing and restructuring the RICO fund so that we can have an infusion of cash at the county level to the county sheriff and to county prosecutors. And we're also crunching the numbers on privatizing the Arizona lottery that would provide $20 to $40 million in flexible funds on an annual basis. That's real money, and that's the type of work we're doing in our office.
Lottery revenue, this is so typical. Lottery revenues have been pledged by an act of the state legislature signed by the governor. Those are revenues that are earmarked for K-12 education. So again, kind of a hollow promise. You know, the fact of the matter, I want to ask Scott, though, very directly, because he says there's virtually nothing that can be done.
I didn't say that.
Well,
Didn't say that.
But you implied that the state is very limited in what it can do. What about interior enforcement in the state of Arizona? What about, let me finish, Scott, SB 1062, all right? Because the primary author of that legislation, former State Senator President Russell Pierce, who strongly
Frank, I think you
endorses
meant
and supports my
1070.
candidacy.
1070.
1070.
I'm sorry, 1070.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
correction.
Yeah.
1070. He's taken a lot of heat for that particular legislation, but the legislation, the provisions that stand today after the extensive legal challenges allow a local law enforcement officer in the state of Arizona to be able to fully enforce federal immigration law when they have probable cause to believe that an individual that they've detained is in our state illegally in violation of federal immigration law. You oppose SB 1070.
Please let him respond.
Okay, and let me tell you, first of all, the police officers in Arizona have always had that ability. The city of Mesa, within a month after coming into office, I led the effort to put in an immigration enforcement policy that basically instructed our officers how to enforce, how to use probable cause to enforce immigration policy. It was 2 years before SB 1070. We trained every one of our officers in immigration enforcement. We brought certain officers in our jails to 286G training. But the fact is that the one problem with SB 1070, and this is a normal problem, this is why I asked the question. As a mayor, I looked at SB 1070. It didn't change what Mesa Police Department could do one bit. We were already on the front lines of doing that. What it also did not do, it did not include 1 cent from the state for enforcement. It pushed all of the monies down to the counties and the cities, and that's the problem I bring up with. If we're serious about this, let's find the money to do it, and then let's do it.
Andrew.
Ted, I think I've been very patient because this is a subject very close to my heart, and I appreciate the opportunity to be heard. Look, we have to secure our border. I mean, Arizona has to do it. The federal government is not going to do it, and if we don't do it very soon, it's going to be too late for this state, as it is for other states. We need to put the National Guard on the border with sufficient numbers to get the job done. We need to fully complete a fence. I respectfully disagree with Christine on that. We need to have a full fence there. The voters deserve to know how we're going to pay for that. I'm going to have more to say about that here in the future, but let's be honest. Giving more money to local.
You're welcome to take a page out of my plan like Doug did if you want.
Actually, your plan just says send the bill to Obama. I promise I'll do better than that.
Actually, it doesn't. It calls for the legislature to appropriate the funds, but okay, go on.
Well,
There's no way. That would break the state budget. There is a source of funding.
Frank, we spend $2.8 billion right now on this problem. Don't you think we could take 10% of it?
Back to Washington how many times, Christine? And what
did Doug do to collect it? We've talked to him about this before. He hasn't done a single solitary thing. And yet he signs the checks. He signed every single one of those $2.8 billion in checks.
Which is
Could I at least finish my
That's a great alternative.
Andrew's got the floor here. Go ahead.
Thank you. We talked about some other issues, but we've got to be honest here. Giving more money to sheriffs and county prosecutors, activist judges have thrown out virtually all of our immigration laws. The one law that remains is the employer sanctions law, and the last employer sanctions case that was filed against a business for hiring illegals was filed 5 years ago by me. Nobody is enforcing these laws, and we have to talk about these very serious structural challenges, and we've got to get somebody who has a record of stopping illegal immigration and not just election year lip service.
Ken, you mentioned Arizona's image in a couple of different ways. What kind of image does it present when angry protesters are surrounding a bus filled with children? Is that good for Arizona?
Well, I don't know that that actually has happened in Arizona yet. But
well, it was
proposed to happen, but the bus never showed.
Yes,
the bus never showed up. You know, I think people are tired of our border being broken and our country being invaded. I believe the principles of being good neighbors between a country are the same principles as being good neighbors on the street. A lot of people, not all, but many have a wall or a fence between their property. Because when a good neighbor wants to visit, they call ahead, they show up at your front door, you meet them at the front door, you welcome them in and have dinner or watch TV or do whatever you do, and then they go back out the front door. A good neighbor doesn't hop your fence, break into your garage, and live out of your freezer. So we have to cooperate with the federal government, and we can and will make resources available at the state level to be a partner with them in securing our border. It's interesting that we've got 5 other people up here talking about how to balance the state budget, but the only one that's balanced the state budget was me in the 4 years that I was president of the Senate. And we balanced the state budget and left $1 billion in the rainy day fund. And we can do it again, but it takes experience.
I've heard some folks saying cooperating with the federal government. Doug, can you cooperate with the federal government when you are threatening, when you're having angry words, when you're pointing fingers in faces? I mean, how do you cooperate with the federal government on this issue?
Well, I think you begin by being the chief executive officer of the state of Arizona. And then when there are opportunities, I mean, this is our federal government. It is not serving us. You know, what I've said in some of these rooms is in 2016, our long national nightmare will be over and we'll have a new president. So I do think the Obama administration has got some political type of payback for Arizona, but these things will change. So as governor, I not only want to do everything possible at the state level, but when there are willing people at the elected level, you need to work with them to do what can be done.
Please.
Yeah, you know, honestly, the solution to this, I mean, people can beat their chest. I just want to say again, I've put on the uniform of my country. I voluntarily enlisted. I put my life on the line. I did the same thing what I put on the badge and served as a police officer and deputy sheriff. So it's easy to use a lot of red meat rhetoric when you're not in harm's way and have no actual experience of that kind of service. But what I want to say is I'll have immediate credibility and respect with the United States Congress, because I've served in Congress with distinction as a reformer and leader of that institution. I know where the men's room is. And I'll have that ability to influence the Arizona congressional delegation, the leadership in Congress, and yes, this administration to advance Arizona's interest, which means a partnership, a federal, state, local partnership to secure the border and fully enforce immigration law, both at the border and interior Arizona.
Leadership is about not only making decisions, but getting things done. As a mayor, you can scream all you want, but if you don't pick up the garbage on Thursday, people notice. And so you learn to get things done. I've engaged the federal government, both as a mayor and as president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I had the opportunity to go in and engage people I did not agree with, but I understood that the Obama administration, regardless of what I thought of their politics, has a huge impact on Arizona, including border security, including the EPA. And when we had the EPA that was this close to shutting down construction industry in Arizona, rather than scream and yell, I got on a plane, went back to Washington, and sat down with the top official of the EPA, and we opened a dialogue. And we started talking about the real issues and the real problems, and that led to an historic agreement between Maricopa County, Maricopa Associated Governments, the state, and the EPA on dust control. That's how you get things done, is you engage.
One of the first things the next governor will have to get done is figure out what to do with education spending, especially with the inflation adjustment ruling. Christine, what do you do with inflation adjustment education funds? And was the legislature right in withholding those funds when they did?
You know, as a CPA, I think any of the gimmicks that the legislature uses to balance the budget is a little bit dangerous. I think we also have to acknowledge that Governor Brewer took over in a time when the budget and the economic situation was very difficult, and they had to do what they had to do. So for us to now sit and throw hand grenades into the arena when we weren't part of the conversation, I think is a little disingenuous. But nevertheless, we are where we are. We have court rulings, we're waiting for a couple of others, and if in the end we have to pay back the money, we are going to have to tighten our belt in some ways that we haven't done before. We're already kind of down to the bone. We're talking about getting to marrow now in terms of budget cuts. But we do have some things that we can do in this state to lay the groundwork for businesses to create jobs, and this is one of the things that we learned at GoDaddy, going from just a few dozen employees to 4,000. Most of those jobs right here in Arizona. You know, Mayor Smith talks about creating good paying jobs. We learned a thing or two about that at GoDaddy. And part of it is really to sit down with CEOs and to say, you know, let me explain to you why Arizona is your wisest choice. We had a chance to go to Texas. You know why we didn't go to Texas? Because we knew the difference. And so part of it is displaying that leadership. Part of it is taking the argument out of it. And one of the reasons I'm running for governor, Ted, is this argument that's going on here. Because what you hear people talking about is all kinds of stuff that can't be done. You can't do this and you can't do that. And you know what? I even this very morning, today, Doug's campaign put an ad on TV talking about my plan being inconsistent. You know what? Why don't you stop attacking each other and talk about what you can do?
Christine,
this is really important stuff. You know,
Chris,
if we're talking about secure the border and send the federal government the bill, how could anything be any plainer?
Yeah,
what we're talking about here is how are you going to pay for education funding? Let's talk about paying for education
Let's have a
funding.
dialogue, not a monologue. That was a public service announcement, by the way, Christine. It's important that when you say something on television,
public service announcement paid for
it's
by DC
important
2014,
that when you say something on television and you say something exactly opposite in private, that somebody points it out.
I understand
but to
now
your
why
question,
you didn't collect the money,
to your
because
question,
you don't know how to add up money,
Ted,
right?
to your
Let him
question,
respond. Let him respond.
And I'll address the state's finances and where they are versus when I came into office. At
Except
the end
you
of
won't
this,
address the question, Doug, which is what you
Ted,
usually do
in
at
terms
these
of
forums.
the education funding, which was your question, let me answer first with what I won't do. I won't raise taxes. After that, I think we have 4 options. The first is to comply. The second is to appeal the ruling, and I applaud the governor because she has appealed the ruling. The third is to actually restructure the formulas, and that's what I want to do inside a Ducey administration. And the fourth is to ignore it, so I wouldn't ignore it, I wouldn't comply with it, I would appeal it, and I would restructure these funding formulas. We have $9 billion that is washing through K-12 education at the state, local, and federal level to educate just over 1 million children. We need to quit making spending the measure of success and start making results-based outcomes the measure of success in K-12.
You didn't mention once in there in the entire, that kind of turned into a monologue, but his repeated promises on the campaign trail to fully abolish state income taxes.
That isn't what I said.
Doug, I've heard you too many times.
It's in my
Doug,
plan.
you're outvoted here 5-1.
Well, it's
or 4-1. I'm sorry about that. Because Andy hasn't
agree on one
participated.
thing.
It's in my plan, and you can read the exact
and a plan without
language.
experience is just words on a piece of paper.
I'm
Let me
state
finish.
treasurer,
Let me
I've lowered
finish. Let me
taxes,
finish. Yeah.
Frank.
And also, as an incumbent statewide office holder, we didn't hear a peep out of you when Common Core and Medicaid expansion were going into effect. Not one word, but I'm sure you had a wet finger in the breeze.
Frank,
see how that was going. Wait a minute.
well, if I'm going to be addressed, I'm going to have to
Wait a
come back.
Let him respond to that.
Yes. Frank, on Proposition 204, which raised the sales tax permanently $1 billion, they named the state treasurer in it 11 times. I stepped forward, and Prop 204 lost in every county in this state, and last year your taxes actually went down.
What did you do on the proposition before 204 that actually implemented
I was
the sales
opposed to
tax?
that. I was
You
opposed
were?
to that.
Publicly?
Yes, I was
Did you
opposed
lead
to
the
that
fight on
publicly.
that?
I was opposed to that. I was running for treasurer. It was my first time in public office. Frank, you had every opportunity to step forward on these issues as well. You could have led a coalition. What'd you do?
I wasn't an incumbent
You don't
statewide
have to-
office
you don't
holder,
have to
and
be-
I certainly wasn't state treasurer at the time.
You don't have to
Had
be.
it been, I know what I would
You
have done.
don't have to be, but you didn't.
Well,
That's right. And you've
Wait
never
a
had to
second,
cast
you
a
oppose Prop
single tough
100,
vote, Doug.
but you take credit for the financial condition that the state is in. The state is in the financial condition it's in because, and I agree with Christine, the legislature did what it had to do. But you opposed Prop 100, which was Governor Brewer's temporary sales tax, which the vast majority of Arizona voters approved of. Our budget was covered by that sales tax, by massive amounts of debt, including selling state buildings like our state capitol, and massive infusion of Obama stimulus monies. Now, the legislature did do what it had to do, but let's not sit here and take credit and stroke and say we did a wonderful job when actually you opposed the very things that got us to where we are. And that's what you've done.
Well, no, that's not what I did.
You said as treasurer, look at the financial condition we're in.
Let him answer.
I kept the temporary tax temporary. When I ran for treasurer in December of 2009, the state was being described as bankrupt and insolvent. Not a dollar in the rainy day fund, not a dollar in the checking account. Today we have $2.3 billion cash in that operating account. We have $454 million in a reserve account earning interest, and the permanent land endowment trust fund is at an all-time record high. You can go to aztreasury.gov to see these numbers. The state is in better financial condion. So just where you know where I'll be, Scott, I will always be on the side of the taxpayer, not on the side of the tax collector.
We're against the taxpayer.
Right there, took credit for that being where it is, and what I just said is how it got to where it was are things that you opposed.
Ken, please.
So,
Let me-
you can't have it both ways. You
wanna
can't
get to-
take credit for something and then say that you were against everything that got it
Ken,
there.
please.
Ted, the reason that the state sits on about $2 billion of funding right now is because we have been delaying funds to the schools for over $1 billion, and we have swept almost $800 million from the local governments, the cities and towns and counties, and done other accounting tricks and gimmicks. So it's a falsehood to say that we are in this strong financial position.
But did the governor, was it wrong then for the legislature to withhold those inflation-adjusted funds?
Well, one court has said it was, one court has said it wasn't.
What do you say?
And it will be appealed. That's a court's decision. I read the language that the voters approved 10 years ago to say you can fund this part of the formula or that part of the formula. So I read an or as an or. The court has now said that you should read it as an and you have to fund the entire formula. And so the courts will decide that. But when I was Senate President, we not only fully funded student growth and inflation, but we also added more new money to K-12 than any other four-year period in the history of the state. Now, many will say, well, you were there during the good times, Ken. No, 3 and 4, 03 and 04, were tough times. We still had to balance the budget in tough times coming out of the economic downturn of Y2K and 9/11. 05 and 06 got pretty healthy because the economy was healthy. And yes, we were able to do some good things. But everybody's arguing about how do you balance a state budget, but no one except me has done it.
Andrew, again, I want to get back to this is a primary debate for governor, and a governor has a decision to make regarding following what the voters want in terms of inflation adjustment education funds or not. Right. Legislature, governor decided not. Was that the right thing to do?
Well, when the voters speak, politicians should salute and implement their will. Now, we've got court rulings that are determining that outcome, and that process hasn't fully played out. But let me just say this. The reality is, this is, for all of our, we're focusing on the shortcomings of Arizona, I guess just because we want to make things better, but this is a great and vibrant state. This is a relatively wealthy state. We can pay our obligations if we put first things first. Education obviously is very important. I have 4 children. They've been a part of the system for some time, but let's not forget the other things that can improve our education system. We have a very strong charter school system in Arizona. That's something we should be proud of. That is a strength for us. I believe in school choice. I don't know where my opponents stand, but I do think that school choice strengthens our education system. I oppose Common Core. I think that was a very wrong-headed move, and I support the repeal of Common Core. And we need to have somebody who will also make sure that our schools are centers of order and discipline. And when we have these school shootings, they're random, they happen all over the nation, but these are real threats, and we need to make sure that when our children go to school, they're safe.
Frank, real quickly,
that
Common
wasn't the
Core.
question, was it?
No, it wasn't, but I'm asking you. Common Core. He brought up Common Core.
I am the only candidate, and I can't speak for Andy because really until very recently he hasn't participated at all in the many forums and debates that we've done. Very true.
No?
But I am the only candidate at the forums that has said I will use the executive authority of the governor's office to repeal Arizona's participation in Common Core on day one.
Why?
Because it represents the further federalization of K-12 education, the nationalization of the standards and tests that we use to educate our kids. Those are responsibilities and decisions of Arizonans for Arizona kids. And the other why, Ted, because it goes right back to what you just said, I don't believe in doing the state budget by popular referendum. But if the judge's ruling stands, the fact of the matter is we have to look at every dollar. The Arizona Association of School Business Officials says it will cost over $350 million to fully implement Common Core. That's money that is better spent to comply with the court mandate if it stands.
Christine, Common Core, good for Arizona? Would you repeal it? If Common Core were proven to be very beneficial as far as education is concerned, would you think twice about it?
Well, I think you make an assumption that's difficult to prove out, but I will say when my husband retired from the military, he became a high school teacher. So we've had a really good view at a grassroots level, day-to-day basis for the last 12 years, sort of the evolution from Ames into the implementation of Common Core. I'm opposed to it for a number of reasons, not the least of which is we ought not to federalize the standard making of education. But specifically, when you're a teacher and you're in the classroom and you're looking eyeball to eyeball with children and a disproportionately large section of your class time is required to comply with the standard and you're left with very little time to actually educate, it creates a very difficult learning environment.
Very quickly then, no standards?
Standards are good. High standards are better. An academically rigorous environment is essential, but they have to be applied at the local level. But we also know the standards aren't the only thing that matter, because we have 3 of the top 10 high schools in the country right here in Arizona, and we have some of the bottom, right? So it tells me as a business person, Who's running these schools matters. Who's teaching your kids matters.
Okay, Scott, I want to get you on Common Core.
Well, I think this shows what the real problem is. Common Core has now become a completely political debate. And I think, unfortunately, the one thing we don't talk about is the children. I have supported Arizona College and Career Ready standards from day one. My father was an educator. I believe in high standards. I believe in local control. I would never accept anything that is Washington run. But I think right now, as I go around the state, I'm finding that we're so discussing the politics of education that we forget what's happening in the classroom. We're not talking about what happens between that child and that teacher. That's what I would focus on. If we got to take a time out on whatever you call it, Common Core, whatever program it is, we need to take a time out because I'm worried about the implementation of something that is not supported, and we need to get back to what happens in the classroom.
Common Core.
I'm opposed to Common Core because it ties Arizona into funding from Washington, D.C. and purchases obedience on the waiver of mandates from No Child Left Behind. We do need high standards. I've talked in my plan about standards that I would lead with in a Ducey administration. We want our kids, I mean, this is about the right teachers in the classroom. This is about committed principals, but this is also about these funding formulas that I think everyone would agree are failing us, and that we have wait lists at our best schools that Christine mentioned. There's a 2,000 kid wait list at Basis, a 12,000 kid wait list at Great Hearts. Some of our K-12 systems that are excelling with committed principals have a wait list. These dollars need to follow the child and allow them to be in the classroom.
Ken, everyone seems to be against Common Core. Again, if Common Core were proven to be a successful, a positive impact on education, on children, would you still be against it for what Scott would say would be political reasons?
No, of course not. We should be focused on what's going to help students. I visited a school in South Tucson a few months ago where a new principal showed up about 6 years ago, and at the time only 20% of the students could read and write at grade level. Very low income portion of Tucson, over 92% qualify for free and reduced lunch. 6 years later, that number is over 75% of the students at or above grade level in reading and writing, and they did it without Common Core. The last time standards were adopted in the state was the Arizona Academic Standards back in the mid-90s. I was on the State Board of Education. But we adopted them by getting 1,000 Arizonans together. They should be Arizona-based. I don't like the tie-in to federal money. I don't like the tie-in to the data collection on students. But if they were proven to help Arizona students and you could get rid of all the other stuff, then let's make them better by making them Arizona standards and get rid of some of the crap in there.
All right, and we will stop it right there. Each candidate will now give a 1-minute closing statement, and going in reverse order of the opening remarks, we start with Ken Bennett.
Well, thank you for viewing this evening. I'm Ken Bennett, and I'm running to serve as your governor. And if you remember one thing about me, I would suggest it be experience matters. We've seen a lot of heated debate going on, and I know about heated debate because I've served in legislative bodies like the State Senate, and you get passionate about things. But what Arizona needs and what its people deserve is a governor who can bring people together. During the 4 years I was Senate President, we didn't pass the budgets by just getting all of one party and a couple of the other, or vice versa. We had to work together. The Republicans had a narrow majority in the Senate that I was the CEO of, but I met every week with the leaders of the Democrat caucus. And we found ways to not only get a majority of the Republican caucus to support the budgets, but we got a majority of the Democrat caucus to support those budgets as well. Arizona deserves someone who can bring people together and get things done for the people of Arizona. And that's what I will bring as your governor. Ken Bennett, BennettArizona.com is our website. Thank you for looking in this evening.
All right, thank you very much. For our next closing statement, we turn to Christine Jones.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks so much for hosting tonight, and thanks for listening and for hearing us out on where we plan to take the state. I do think that there are nice guys in this race, and I've developed a level of respect for each of them, and we've gotten to know each other pretty well. But I also know that even with these gentlemen already in place, each of them either in office or having been in office, there's still a vacuum, and we still have so many of these conversations about what's wrong and what we can't do, and I think that vacuum needs to be filled by a fearless, determined, proven leader, and that's why I'm running for governor. I've never been in office before. I don't owe anybody anything, but as I travel around the state and this conservative outsider message resonates, it confirms what I suspected all along, that voters kind of think the same way I do. So I'm Christine Jones. I'm running for governor. I would love to have your support. I hope you vote for me. In this state, less than 10% of the population are going to elect the next governor, so go find some people and get them to vote too. Thanks.
Thank you. Andrew Thomas now with his closing statement.
Arizona is one of the great places on earth in which to live. That's why my wife and I moved here 23 years ago. But it is only going to remain that way if we defend this state from the threats that confront us. We need to have somebody who will be tough in dealing with those threats. When I was Maricopa County Attorney, I increased the incarceration rate dramatically, and criminals were taken off the streets, and crime rates went down throughout the valley, and it benefited the entire state. When I enforced the law, illegal immigrants fled the state. Now they stay and protest because they have no fear of law enforcement, and indeed, why should they? Nobody's doing much of anything. We need to have somebody who is tough, who will confront the issue that will not go away because there is so little political courage and actual know-how in dealing with it. That is what I offer. We must secure our border now. We must stop illegal immigration now before it is too late. And if we do that, things will get better, and Arizona has a bright and shining future once we put first things first. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. And with our next closing statement, we turn to Frank Riggs.
Thank you, Ted. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm Frank Riggs. I have a lifetime of leadership, service, and experience that I want to offer my fellow Arizonans. I will be the strong governor that Arizona needs. I'm not looking at the next elective office. I'm not looking at re-entering politics for the long term. I'm running for governor of Arizona because we need a strong, proven, tested, trusted leader at the helm. I'm endorsed by State Senator Russell Pierce, State Senator Judy Burgess, former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum. I've received the endorsement of Arizonans Against Common Core for my commitment to repeal Common Core on day one, from the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons for my commitment to roll back the unsustainable expansion of Medicaid under Obamacare, which takes $1 trillion out of Medicare over the next decade. And I'm endorsed by the National Council of Vietnam and Gulf War veterans because they know I'll never leave my fellow veterans behind. I'm Frank Riggs, riggsforazgov.com.
Thank you very much. Doug Ducey now with his closing remarks.
Thanks, Ted. Appreciate being here tonight. My name is Doug Ducey, and I do want to be your next governor. I've built the broadest coalition of any candidate in this race, from the Tea Party Patriot founders to social conservatives to fiscal conservatives to Arizona business legend Jerry Colangelo. And the reason that they've supported our campaign is the vision I have for an Arizona that leads the nation. I built a company. Now I want to shrink a government and grow an economy. If you like what I'm talking about and you want to be a part of this, I want to ask you to help in any way you can. Please go to DougDucey.com, Doug Ducey on Facebook, or @DougDucey on Twitter. It's time to kickstart our economy, put real solutions in our K-12 system so we have better outcomes for our kids, and truly secure our border. I'll be the governor who will get it done, and I'm asking for your vote. Thanks for having me here tonight.
Thank you very much. And with our final closing statement, Scott Smith.
Thank you, Ted. If you notice a little bit of feistiness tonight, I think it's because there's a lot of pent-up frustration. As candidates, we have very rarely been able to actually mix it up, and I think that's healthy. I think that's good to hear different ideas and to hear different viewpoints. But it reminds me a lot of I was at a carnival. It reminds me walking down the aisle and you hear all the barkers there promising this, and you look over and there's big teddy bears up hanging from the things, and they tell you, these ping pong balls actually will stay on these plates, and these rings will go on these bottles, and basically they're empty promises meant to entice you to come into something that's just not real. As we go through this, look and see who's actually led in a time of crisis. I'm the only candidate here who's actually balanced a budget 6 years in a row as mayor of Mesa. But we not only said what we couldn't do, we created things and opportunities. We brought in colleges. We brought in Apple with a $2 billion investment. We took care of business, we handled the crisis, and we created a future. That's not a carnival barker, that's reality. That's what you do as a mayor. You lead and you have proven leadership, and I'm the only candidate with a proven track record of accomplishments. Thank you very much. Scott Smith, former Mayor of Mesa, votescottsmith.com. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, candidates, and thank you for watching this special Vote 2014 Clean Elections debate featuring candidates in the Republican primary for governor. Arizona Horizon's next debate will be Monday, July 28th, when we hear from candidates running in the Republican primary for state attorney general. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.